Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Here's your host, Mary Gaida.
We are back today with Eric Hanna, employee benefits consultant with Risk Strategies. Eric, you've spent 20 years in healthcare, all the seats at the table, healthcare administrator, business leader, now in the consultant role, helping businesses right here in Lansing optimize their employee benefits. Thanks for joining us once again.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Mary. I appreciate it. Happy holidays. And how was your
Yes.
Thanksgiving? It's been
My
a minute since we
Thanksgiving
talked.
was fabulous, except for the 10 pounds that always comes with it. How was yours?
Great, great. Same, right? That means you did it right, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
favorite
awesome.
holiday for a reason.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, I know we've got an exciting topic today, but since we spoke last, I want to highlight this for your listeners. I think they'd be interested to know that since we last chatted, you brought home some very prestigious hardware. You mind telling us about it?
I would love to tell you about it. I was actually really honored to have been asked by Origami Rehabilitation to represent them in something they did with the nonprofit hub, kind of a quasi-local celebrity Uno tournament.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I played against the likes of Bobby Hoffman, Deborah Hart, Sherry Jones, and somehow I won the whole thing.
Congrats.
Yeah,
One,
thank
that's
you.
tough competition.
Tough competition.
And two, I mean, you can't beat a game of Uno, right?
You can't. It was so fun. And I kept saying, this is for origami. This is for origami. Stick with it, Mary. And somehow I made it through. So yeah, it was
I,
wonderful.
I actually just saw a post in the last couple of weeks, sort of funny, the timing of all this, that the makers of Uno formally prohibited playing two draw twos back to back. So this might be controversial,
Okay.
but as an expert and now champion, what's your reaction to that rule change
Whew,
or
Eric.
clarification?
So I'm thinking if I can't stack draw twos, what am I even fighting for in this world? If the rule turns Uno from sort of a battle of psychological warfare into a friendly brunch game, and that's just not as fun.
Yeah,
It's frankly, it's
gotcha.
unacceptable.
I knew you had some killer in you. I like it.
I really do.
Good. Well, I mentioned we got an exciting or interesting topic, but so
hmm
for not to have a cheesy segue here, so do you think Uno transcends generations or does it sit within certain generations' experience? What do you think? And that's a teaser for what we're going to talk about.
Yes. Well, actually, I had talked to a lot of my coworkers about it, and all ages knew the game, thought it was so fun, and say they play. So it obviously transcends. However, I think there is a little bit of nostalgia to it for us folks of a certain age. So kind of a little of both, which brings us though to today's topic. I assume that there are generational differences in what people want out of their employee benefits. It seems logical that someone later in their career, like myself, values retirement planning, or someone newer in their career might value things like family planning. Am I onto something there?
You're right on point. So business leaders, like HR, finance, operational professionals are probably seeing some of that tension play out, right? And while I'm not a generational expert per se, there's some real great survey data available that's providing insights into the desires of employees across generations when it comes
Mhm.
to employee benefits. So employers are trying to design one benefit strategy that works for all of them. And generational experts might say that there are maybe 5 to 7 generations in the workforce. For today's topic, I thought we'd primarily look at the 4 generations that most significantly present. So
Okay.
lots to get into, but as a quick overview, we have Gen Z, born 1997 to 2012, wants flexibility, mental health support, and help with debt, often student
Mm,
loan. We have millennials in the workforce, born in the early 1980s to the mid 90s, are in peak caregiving years and worrying about college savings and retirement at the same time. Gen X, born in the mid 60s to early 80s, is sandwiched between kids and aging parents. They're in a heavy
yes.
caregiving role, as well as the millennials. And then you have baby boomers, right? From 1946 to 1964 birth years are working longer and want security and a glide path into retirement. So high level, that's the context we're working within.
That makes so much sense. 4 to 7 generational differences in the workforce. What does that look like for employers?
Yeah, obviously, each employer should look at the demographics of their unique workforce because this is going to change company to company, size of company, all those things kind of play in. And apply these ideas we're going to talk about based on how it shakes out for them. But also, this context helps them be ready for change year to year. The average length of employment is about 4 years nationally. So that generational mix today might change in the next 2 or 3 years for a company. So having the context and understanding how to adapt and create a program that's malleable and flexible, I think really, really furthers them down the path.
Hmm.
So for context, I'll pose this question to you, not to put you on the spot, but which of these generations that we've talked about, youth say has the largest presence in the workforce right now?
Oh gosh. The largest presence in the workforce has got to be millennials.
You got it. You got it.
All
Yep. A
right.
few
All
years
right.
ago, millennials became the largest generation in the US labor force. There are more than 1 in 3 workers today. So newer data from MetLife's 2025 Employee Benefits Trend Study shows that Gen Z now represents about 18% of the workforce. Boomers are down to around 15%, and Gen Z is projected to be 1/3 of all employees by 2030 as boomers retire and such. So
Hmm.
at the same time, Pew Research notes that older adults are healthier and more educated than in past, which is one reason we're seeing more boomers stay in the workforce longer.
Hmm.
So you've got Gen Z entering, boomers delaying retirement, millennials, Gen X in the middle carrying a lot of the financial and caregiving load.
It's just so much to think about, especially being in that Gen X category. You're right. It's a whole lot. So structurally, leaders are managing a workforce that's both younger and older at the same time.
That's right. And the stress level is pretty high across the board. So again, that MetLife study shows that only 39% of employees say they're holistically healthy, quote unquote. That's
Wow.
the study result. So meaning mentally, financially, socially, and physically. That's down from 44% in the prior year. So that's
Wow.
not the trend that we want to
44.
see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the financial stress is real. There's a Bank of America study that found that employees are optimistic about their long-term financial future, but they're stressed right now about debt, caregiving, emergency savings. So the baseline is workforce is multi-generational and everyone kind of has their pressure points for where they are in kind of their employment journey.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about what actually differs by generation. So to be clear, we're not looking to stereotype, but how can leaders use patterns to make smarter decisions?
Yeah, great caveat. These are tendencies, right? We're not putting people into boxes, and
Hmm.
you might even think of it as more of a continuum than actual starts and stops, right? It all kind of blends together to some degree, right?
Right.
So for Gen Z and younger millennials, we see a few consistent themes in the research. They value flexibility and work-life integration. So a SHRM report highlights that 79% of millennial and Gen Z respondents say flexible work options are a priority. 64% prioritize flexible parental leave as one example. And there's a pretty broad emphasis on access to mental health resources. So that's really the second value component is access to mental health services and holistic well-being. Gen Z is a little lagging behind other generations. They're nearly half as likely as boomers to say they're holistically healthy, with lower engagement, happiness, and connection leading to higher stress and depression. So, access to those mental health services are really important at that stage. And they're also facing financial insecurity and debt. Again, that Bank of America report shows, especially younger employees, they're stressed about debt, emergency
Hmm.
savings, and near-term obligations, student loan repayment largely, even if they're optimistic over the past 3 years. So contextually, not to dig too deep in the economy side, because I'm certainly not an expert on that front either, but if you pull these couple pieces together, housing prices have pushed the average first-time home buyer to 40 years old. Average
Hmm.
price of a new car is over $50,000. College graduates are coming out of school with massive debt, and the average family health insurance plan is 27,000. So while they're relatively optimistic that they'll overcome these challenges, those are pretty big financial hills to climb, and also so that's putting pressure on employers to figure out how to support them.
Absolutely. Employers are carrying a lot of weight of decision in this. So if
That's
you're
right.
a business leader, you're hearing from folks, hey, don't just talk to me about a 401k I'll use in 30 years. And I know because I was someone that said that 30 years ago,
Yeah.
but help me live and stay healthy right now is what they
Yeah.
really want too.
That's 100% true. Um, and from a delivery perspective, the employer can communicate to those folks in a digital first experience. So that's the preference on the communication. And so when you're thinking about benefits, open enrollment, and how those communications come out, that digital first communication is important. But you're right. They know the 401k downstream is important, but it's not like the thing right now that they're as more laser focused on.
Right. It's crazy to think about.
Right. So that really kind of takes us to the older millennials. Again, here sort of the blending here, older millennials and Gen X, often called the sandwich generation, and most distinctly saddles a pre and post Google, Facebook, internet, smartphone world, right? They had
Mhm.
half of their work time before that existed, and now since it's existed. And they're sandwiched between raising kids, supporting aging parents, carrying mortgages, and sometimes still student loans. And now they're also starting to look ahead at what does their retirement picture look like. So again, that MetLife's multi-generational research found that 51% of millennials strongly value retirement planning classes. So again, they're looking ahead compared to 39% of boomers who are probably more in it at that moment. And they're very concerned about having enough money for their child's education. So again, sandwich, they're thinking about their long-term future, but also thinking about the future of their kids. So this segment prefers personal guidance in terms of benefits, communication, and enrollment. So they're really leaning into retirement readiness, college savings, comprehensive health coverage, and caregiver support.
Wow. So much to think about. What about the boomers?
Two big things for boomers. They value health and income security. Those are huge.
Mm,
So as workers age, the perceived value of strong medical coverage, disability, income replacement benefits goes up dramatically.
yeah.
So they're looking at that for that clear path to retirement. So older workers today are more educated and healthier, like we talked about,
Hmm.
enabling them to work longer, but that makes that retirement transition more complex and individualized. I know in my family, several members who have recently retired are all in their early to mid 70s. It's a little different, and that transition takes a little time to work out. So having a careful plan in advance helps. So they value the communication up front to help them make that transition. And usually in the methods of traditional communication approaches like meetings and booklets. So for many boomers, the priority is stable, predictable health coverage, solid retirement savings, flexible and phased retirement paths.
So let's land this for the executives that are listening to this podcast. If you're a business leader and you want to better align your benefits with all of these generational preferences that you just discussed, where do you start?
I'd suggest a pretty simple three-step roadmap. First, and we mentioned this at the open, quantify your own generational mix.
Hmm.
Slice your employee data by generation and look at their participation and utilization across your existing benefits. Where are you over or underserving certain groups? Second, listen before you design or make changes. Yeah, you can run a pretty short targeted survey or focus groups asking questions like, what's your biggest financial worry? What's the hardest part of using our benefits? If we could improve one thing in our benefits experience, what would it be? And break those responses down again in those life stages or generational, sort of buckets, if you want to put it that way.
Hmm.
And then third, build a dynamic benefits portfolio that's not just a one size fits all, that has some flexibility built into it. Mix core benefits everyone needs with optional modules that might speak to those different life stages. And then invest in segmented communication so each group actually see themselves in what you're offering. So it needs to reflect what their priorities are. So also, just a quick side note, at Risk Strategies, we have something called the Optimized Health Plan Workbook that's available. I'm happy to share it. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'll send it to them.
Awesome. So, any final thoughts for the C-suite?
Yes, and we've covered a lot in a fairly short amount of time, and it might
Yes.
seem like, oh, like where do you start, right? And hopefully that roadmap helps kind of move down the path. But in the end, general differences aren't necessarily a problem to fix. They're just a design constraint to
Mhm.
embrace. When employers get this right, it's less about having, nicer benefit booklets or just more stuff. The approach reduces financial and health stress, strengthens trust and retention, and creates a workforce that's resilient across economic cycles. So that's not just an HR win, but it's a strategic advantage in the marketplace.
That is just a wealth of information. Anything else you'd like us to know, Eric?
I think we close with this. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to follow me, I'm posting content like this. I had a post about generational differences a couple of weeks ago. I can share, if you want to message me, I can share that health plan workbook. Also on our website, risk-strategies.com/blog, we're often offering additional tips and context around this type of an issue because it's tough. It's not a quick topic to resolve.
It is a lot to think about. And thank you for always giving us so much information. I know folks can look you up on LinkedIn under Eric Hanna. Listen to the podcast again and again, share it with others so that we can create some knowledge is power, right? So the more people that listen to this, the more people are going to be opened up to, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this, which is why I love you as a guest so frequently on this podcast.
I will appreciate you putting it up. It's important stuff for the business community.
Have a great holiday. I am sure we'll talk again in 2026.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for listening to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Get to know local businesses better by reading 517 Business Magazine. Get your subscription at 517mag.com/subscribe.